Welcome back to the Chosen Journey with Big Money Grip, Steve Carsey, and the Chosen Lawyers. Steve, what is on your head today?
Oh, today we got the USSSA logo. It's tournaments that our youth team plays in uh, pretty much every weekend. So it's just a representation of 12U baseball today.
And how is 12U baseball going? Your son, Kingston, future number one draft pick, MLB. How's he doing?
He's doing well, continues to grow. It's challenging. We played our first game on a bigger field, making a transition to 80-foot bases and 54-foot mounds. So for 12-year-olds, it's a longer throw. It's a little bit different look. We played a 13U team as a 12-year-old team, and we did pretty well. I was extremely pleased with how the boys competed, how the boys made the transfer. There was some mistakes, but uh, as expected for 12-year-olds when they're playing that type of baseball and moving to a bigger field.
What's the age bracket when they start moving between wooden bats, aluminum bats? How does that work in lower level
Yeah,
baseball?
so I'm still learning this as well for youth baseball, but up until 12 years old, you're allowed to use what they call a drop 10, 10 ounces lighter than the length of the bat. So if it's a 31-inch bat, then it's a 21-ounce bat. So it's a 31 drop 10. That's or a 30 drop 10, which would be 30 inches and 20 ounces. So uh, it's kind of regulated like that for the safety, depending what league you're in. And then as you get older, the you have to start using a heavier bat. So it goes from a drop 10 up until 12 years old to a drop 8 at 13 years old. Once you get into 14 years old, which is like eighth grade, year before high school, you got to go to a drop 5. So it's 5 ounces lighter than the length of the bat. And then as you get into high school, which is 15 years old and higher, with some exceptions, you have to use either what they call is a BB core bat, which is a drop 3. And you can use wood at any point in time all the way up if you'd like. But with metal bats, that's how they kind of regulate it and try to create some safety issues with the heaviness of the bat.
You think some kids growing up, especially in grade school, going to high school, make the mistake as far as seeing their favorite player, their favorite batter, and saying, I want his bat, I want his weight, and trying to swing those bats at that age?
You know, yeah, I mean, I guess everybody does that, but I just think that the parents and the coaches need to have an understanding of the stature of the boy, where he's at, is how much, can he actually swing, and then all of these places that you go to, try to find the proper bat fitting that works best for their boy, and to try to make that athlete as successful as possible. I see a lot of boys just wanting to swing a heavier bat because their peers are swinging a heavier bat. And it just does not do them justice. It's slow. It gives them, not the proper swing, and then they're just late on a lot of pitches and fouling them off, and then the confidence level goes. So, uh, in my opinion, I just think that you need the proper bat, you need the proper equipment, you need the proper level of baseball that your boy is capable of playing for him to be successful and to develop. I mean, I think that's the number one thing that or at least I do as a coach. There's many who chase rings and chase medals, and organizations that want to win, and everybody wants to win, but the development of each individual player is extremely important to me, and you try to put them in the best position to succeed as possible.
You ready for the segue?
Sure.
Team that's looking very much for medals and championships and honor in today's episode is the New York Yankees. And as far as parents needing to change up the equipment, maybe it'll be Aaron Hicks' parents. Maybe we need to look at the bat that he's using currently because Yankees fans are quite upset, Steve Carr says. So in today's episode, we need to fix the New York Yankees and fast. It's funny how my news feed works. I get all sorts of topics, but when baseball season comes, it's just baseball, baseball, baseball. And abundantly, it's clear based on what the media is saying, going about 30 plus games right now. New York Yankees, we got some issues. And it's funny because I'm thinking in my head, okay, so they must be under 500. I take a look at the record, looking at our taping today, they're above 500. But at 18-17, they are 10 games already behind the Rays. You sent me a very shocking stat the other day about the New York Yankees and St. Louis Cardinals. I could not believe this. I had to go take a look. Man, they're right. Would you like to share that one with us?
Yeah, all I sent with you, and it was shocking to me. I did not know this as well. It just popped up on, Bleacher Report in one of the feeds that, this is the first time at the end of April or beginning of May, was the calendar changes to May 1st, that both the St. Louis Cardinals and the New York Yankees are relegated to last place in their division.
Unfreaking believable. But the Pirates, seeing that stat, have decided to go on a losing streak themselves, and that's how baseball works. Isn't it funny, Steve, how a 5 game winning streak, a 5 game losing streak can change things in a heartbeat?
100%. I mean, that's what you're looking for, is consistency within your ball club. The teams that end up winning 95 games are the ones who can kind of stay away from those 5, 6, 7 game losing streaks. When you go on those, you kind of moved into the position of winning high 80s to low 90s, unless you go on a super long winning streak yourself of 8 to 10, 11 games. And in Major League Baseball, it's really hard to do. I mean, what the Rays are doing is pretty special right now. I mean, obviously we're still in the first quarter pole of the season, climbing up to 40 games. And you kind of see who teams are, and everybody saw who the Rays were. The schedule was a little light, I think, early on in the season, but they took advantage of it. Like, you can't control who is put in front of you when you play. All you can do is show up in the field, put your work in, go out, play the game, and see how it does. And they've done a fantastic job with it, even with some injuries and losing a couple starters.
I can tell you, like living in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, right now we have the Maple Leafs, and as far as in hockey season, and Leafs fans are crying right now because the Leafs seem to play down to the opposition when they're not playing the strongest opponents. They got their wish. The Lightning are out, the Bruins are out. Now all they got to do is beat the Panthers, and they can go on to the third round, except the Panthers are up 3-0 in the series. So you never ever, it's like you always say, in a short playoff series, you never ever know. Now, the Yankees fans won't be content with that. I'm not gonna say they need blood, but they certainly need answers, and they need it fast. And there's two people that seem to be on the cusp of their tongue constantly. Number one, the aforementioned Aaron Hicks, who, by the way, doubled his RBI total last night from 1 to 2. I took a look at his numbers, Steve. It is shockingly, I don't know if it's the pressure getting to him or what is it, but it is hard. I mean, you're playing in New York City, you're batting barely a buck 50, no home runs, 2 RBIs after a full month. He's got to be hearing it on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's a tough place to play. I mean, there's no doubt about it, especially when you're struggling. Ask Joey Gallo, I mean, Sonny Gray. Those guys came into New York, and it's just a different animal. Like I've talked to you about before, and we've talked on this show, is going into New York, playing for the Mets and the Yankees, obviously some other places, but New York is always like the spotlight of, like, can this guy play there? The media is always on you. The media is always asking questions. You're, with one of the best franchises in professional sports. So, it gets magnified a little bit more. If Aaron Hicks is on, I don't know, the Kansas City Royals, is it that big of a deal with what he's doing? It's not good by any means, but is it spotlighted like we're talking about right now if he's on the Kansas City Royals? Probably not. But I'm sure he's not happy with how his performance is. Like, no professional athlete wants to get to this point. And there's probably just something within his swing, something within what he's doing. He's been injured quite a bit. He hasn't had consistent playing time. He's getting some now, and he might be working out through some of these kinks. But again, it's magnified because the Yankees are, as you said, 17-16. They're not in first place. They're not up X amount of games. So you can deal with guys who are struggling, and you can deal with guys who are trying to work through things when you're in first place and you have a few game lead. It's really hard to do that when you're in fifth place and you're trying to climb and get production out of these positions and guys that you're putting on the field. I don't want to call it panic mode, but I would say there's some, uh, you know, thoughts going on in a lot of people's heads of why are the Yankees in this position? Um, you know, what can we do to get out of this position? And listen, I know injuries are a part of baseball. The Yankees have a lot of injuries, but so do other teams. And at the end of the day, nobody's going to feel sorry for you that you have 10, 12, 14 guys on the IL and you're struggling because that's just a part of the game of baseball. And, they have to deal with it. I mean, and that's where the depth that we talk about in a roster comes into play is when your secondary guys that you can put on the field when your main guys are injured have to right the ship, hold it down, just keep it afloat until the superstars get back.
And that's a big difference between this Yankees team and the Yankees teams that you were part of back in the day, because I don't see that secondary team. Like they were fielding almost two all-star teams, it felt like. The reality of it today is if everybody is fairly healthy, you're not seeing Hicks in the outfield. Like think about it, Bader is gone, Judge is injured. I think day to day, Stanton is consistently, either in out. Donaldson's been injured. It's tough, to overcome those. And a guy who's getting a lot of flack right now, unfortunately, was their big signing. I wasn't a fan of the move at the time. I'll be honest. I liked the guy as a player a lot. I just thought it was big money for what he was. It's Carlos Rodon. But I read an article last night, and now we're hearing the name of Carl Pavano. And this is another Pavano situation. I think that's really unfair to him to paint him out of that pick. They're two different situations completely, but the media loves to find and exploit that. And it's almost like Rondon's behind the eight ball. By the time he comes, they've already painted a picture of him, and I think that's really unfair.
It is unfair, but that's New York. They're going to make a story. They have to sell papers. They have to put stuff online. People have to read it. They got to draw attention to what they're doing. So, whatever story is coming up in New York, no matter what it is, they are going to, the media, I mean, is going to jump on it and put it out there. I mean, that's unfortunately how the business works. And that's what they do. They cover the team, they try to give information on the team, good, bad, or indifferent. And then they let the fans, decide what they want to do. And that's when the fans come and they boo or they don't boo or they cheer or they, pick a guy that they back. Like that's part of professional sports. That's the mental toughness that guys need to be able to withstand and get over, especially if you're playing in a big market and especially if you're playing in New York.
And that's where, my gut feeling. I mean, you've been at this level, and from a player's perspective, a coaching perspective, I can't see throwing in a towel in April, May. Like at this point, you have so many injuries. I think you got to let it ride. You got to get your horses back. Try to stay semi-competitive, and once a few of these guys get back in there, see what you got, and then deal with it by the trade deadline at that point. But from the Yanks' perspective, I don't think they ever throw in the towel. And it comes to a point that you just got so many injuries that you just got to let it go. Like I can't see what else Cashman could do at this point. What's your feeling on it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, April is April, right? The White Sox are in a hole too. Like that's just part of what the beginning of the season is. But the difference is the White Sox don't have a Tampa Bay Ray team that is constructed the way they're constructed in that division where the Yankees have to compete. Like the Rays are as well constructed as a roster as I've seen in a long time with what they do. And if you just do the math, and I sent something to a friend the other day. I just did the math after the month of April. And if you really look at it from that perspective, um, it's really hard when you look at how you if you get to 95 wins and if the Yankees can get to 95 wins. Yankees would have to play some ridiculous number I sent him, like 27 games over 500 from this point till the end of the season, where the Rays only have to play 10 games over 500 to get to 95 wins.
Unfreaking believable. And that whole division, it's funny. I like to look at the power rankings every week and see which teams are going up, going down. In the top five, you had three AL East teams. You take a look at those Orioles. Like I've watched a few of their games this year. They're pretty exciting. These young players have come together. The Red Sox have figured out a few guys are getting hot at the right time. That lineup's looking really good. The Jays have been scary good at times. Their pitching, has been a little hit and miss, but all of a sudden you get a Kikuchi who's doing it. You get all of a sudden a Pearson who was a former first round pick who's now all of a sudden lights out, hasn't been up a run this year. It's funny how these pieces just come together. That is one scary division. And you could see all the wild card teams coming out of there theoretically. And you could finish with 85, 90 wins and not even make the playoffs. Wow.
Yeah, it's a great division. And what did we talk about the last couple of shows? First 40 games, right? It tells you really who teams are, whether they're 500, above 500. It's a couple surprises, a couple teams that we thought were going to be really good who just aren't as good as we thought they were going to be. Because the first 40 games, the first quarter mark tells you exactly really the identity of what a team is.
Well, we're going to be next week. I got a big launch of somebody who made a return. And when a big bat comes back into your lineup, it's funny how it can change the whole dynamic of your team. So stay tuned for that one. Steve Carsey, thank you for sharing the insights. I'd like to give more hope to the Yankees fans at this point, but I think all we can say is get healthy, stay through it, and let's see what the next quarter brings.
Yeah, absolutely. Tough division, tough climb, tough road, but we've seen crazier things happen, and we'll continue to monitor and watch how they play.
If you want to have any solace, Yankees fans, just keep looking at those reports of those two expansion teams that are on the horizon and complete realignment. And you never know who's going to be in your division come next 5 years or so. Steve Carsey, Big Money Grip, always a pleasure. Thank you for sharing
Thank
the
you.
insights, and we'll see you back
Absolutely.
next week on The Chosen Journey.
Absolutely.